Well, hello everyone and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar, Drive Better Agency Results with your Applied Epic Book of Business Report. This is part one of our two-part series covering the Bob Report, as we lovingly like to call him. My name is Lauren Roberts, and I'm joined today by Jenny Honican. We are so glad that you've joined us today, and we're excited to be sharing today's content. So, Kite Technology is a managed IT service provider and agency consulting firm that works with independent insurance agencies and other businesses across the country. With over 30 years of experience and a team that knows the industry firsthand, we help insurance agencies get more from their technology and their applied Epic systems. You'll see some of our key services listed here, and if you'd like to learn more or want to set up a time to chat, just send us a message in the Q&A channel and we'll reach out after today's session. So with that, time for some quick introductions. I am going to pass it to the lovely Jenny Honican to get us started.
Hello, I am Jenny Honican. I'm an agency consultant and Ava team lead. We'll tell you about Ava later. Here at Kite Technology, I'm coming up on my 4-year anniversary, my kite anniversary, as we say. There's my cheesy joke for you. And I work with a lot of servicing optimizations, things like that. I really love data, and the Book of Business Report is my favorite. I'll heart emoji it right now. And that's pretty much me.
Yes, what you don't know about Jenny is that she is a big old reports geek. Um, so she's really excited for today's session. And of course, I'm Lauren Roberts. I'm the Chief Agency Consultant here at Kite Technology Group. I work with a lot of our new clients that are coming in, assessing what's going on in your agency. I do a little bit of both work on the servicing side and on the accounting side. So I can do a little bit of everything, kind of that jack of all trades, right? LOL. Been with the company for quite some time now, and of course came from an insurance agency myself. So, like Jenny said, we know all the pains, and we're here to help. So today we are hopefully going to help you out a lot with your book of business and making that a lot better. So what we're going to go over today, as far as the agenda is concerned, are the Book of Business Report and why the heck does it even matter? Understanding different versions of the report that are available in Epic to you. We're going to talk about reading some core content, things like your client, account, policy, and status fields, and expand on that some for you. We'll also talk about how to spot missing data, blank assignments, and workflow gaps. We'll talk through some policy types and how those policy types and statuses affect your report. And of course, we love some practical examples, so we'll be going through those as well. So let's talk about what the Book of Business Report is and why in the world does it matter? Honestly, I think this is probably one of the most important reports that is in your Epic database. This is going to give you a lot of information about your book of business overall, your policies that are in your system, the total volume of your agency's business. What is the agency even worth as far as, how many policies and clients that we have? You can also identify the volume of your business by either carrier or department, producer, CSR. There's lots of other options in there. We'll go touch on a couple of those today, but you certainly can use all of the different criterias and layouts to find that information. New and lost business. We definitely need to know what's coming in and what's leaving, but I'm sure nobody ever loses business, so we don't really worry about that one as much. In addition to that, we'll talk through some of the various ways that you can identify data issues. And that's one of the biggest things that we look at on our book of business reports is where is the missing data? Is this data accurate? Is the value what it truly is? So we'll be talking through how you can identify some of those things and use different versions of the report, in addition to other reports to identify where those data gaps are. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jenny to talk about the different types of the Book of Business report that are available.
Okay. So if you've been around a while, you might remember that back in the olden days, and the days of yore, as they say, we had the book of business line book and the book of business policy book. So the line would actually pull from that line information. The policy would pull from the policy header. So each one you might need one for different uses. Remember, the servicing and the producers are on the line, and the policy header has the policy header there, and they kind of just came with one set layout. They were very similar, and now we've got these nice updated book of business layouts that Applied has given us. So I have always been partial to the policy book. I know, Lauren, I think you're more of a line book person, are you? Or is
A
that
little bit
Laura?
of both.
Is
Yeah.
that Laura? Yeah. I just like seeing, just I like the data. So I don't deal with, a whole lot of the details. So you can pull line information into the policy book layout. For instance, policy status is on the line, PRBR is on the line, but the challenge is when you pull like the PRBR onto the line, then you're going to get, if you have two producers on that policy and you pull the policy book, it's going to look like you have two policies. So
Mhm.
it's going to throw off your policy count there.
All right. So let's talk about some of the new report packs that we have.
Yep. We've got our little note down here that the report back came out in 2021, but we still call it the new report back. But you've got a few different versions of the book of business report. You've got one with billed premium and annualized premium. Now, the original, I didn't mention this, but the original policy book and line book, which these reports are built off of, that layout did pull annualized premium, and a lot of us use estimated premium. That's what we recommend. But you can still have this billed and annualized, so you'll have both on your report. You have the billed and calculated estimated multi-layouts. So this one takes into account if you have a 6-month policy, it will actually double the premium. And when we get to criteria, we'll talk about, what the book of business actually is. It's not, it's not all of the business that you have and have had in the agency. It's really just a snapshot, like a screenshot of what's enforced today. So it takes those 6-month policies and it doubles that for you. And then my favorite layout is the book of business build and estimated multi-layouts, just pure what is enforced today. Here's the build premium and commission and the estimated premium and commission.
Yes. And of course, we like to show where these actually are in Epic. So I
Yep.
have already pulled up my Epic screen here. So in your main reports, we always like to note that new report pack. If you don't have that, then you would not be seeing reports in your policy reports that have little asterisks at the end of those. So these are the reports that Jenny was referring to right here. So those ones with the little asterisk at the end, and there's lots of other reports that have been dropped in here as well as a part of that report pack, which are, there you go, Jenny.
Uh, yes. So part of that report pack, you have all of these nice little auditing book reports. They're in the main policy section. That's where the book of business report lies as well. But you have all these nice auditing reports. So you can look for agency bill or direct bill policies that are missing the agency commission percent. So you can see, if you need to apply a commission agreement. That's a whole nother webinar. We can look for policies with missing estimated commission. Again, this is on the policy level, and the new book of business layout is based on that policy line book. So you can see if they're missing the estimated commission, if you're using annualized premium, if they're missing annualized premium, if they're missing the estimated premium as well. You can use this. It's built off of this to give you the blank PRBR. So if your PRBR commissions tab is blank, you can run that. We always say don't leave it blank, even if it's house, because you don't know if it's house or if a producer actually belongs to it if it's blank. So we always say use the house as a filler, put the house at 0%, and you're fine. And then there's a lost business report that's in there and a new business report that's in there. And I will say that these come with the layouts already set, but not the criteria. So you do have to go in the first time you use them and set the criteria for these reports.
All right. Actually, before I type that out, that answer, monitoring the Q&A over here.
Oh, yeah.
Rhonda has a question about how to get the latest reports, and that is a call to applied. I would recommend a call because the report pack has been around for a while. So you just want to make sure you let them know, hey, I don't have the reports with the asterisks. They came in around November 2021. So help me load those up, and they'll get them right over to you. All right.
Yep. Oh, so you might want to show them this in Epic as well, Lauren. But we've said that these are based off of the original Book of Business policy book reports and line book reports. If you're in Epic and you see the report name over on the right, it'll tell you what it's based off of. And so if you see just above it, that says the binder report there, but see how it says this is the default report. So if you right click and revert to default settings, if you have a default report, then it's going to go back to how it came from applied. If you do that on any report that's based on another report, it's going to turn it into just another copy of that policy book report. And so if you've done that and then you've lost your layouts, you just need to call applied and request the report pack again. I think somebody was saying the other day that you'll get all of the reports again, so you'll get a duplicate copy of all of them. But when you call, it's usually just within an hour or so. It's really quick. So
Mhm. Another thing to note, I'm going to answer live again. I started typing and then I'm like, let me just answer this.
mhm.
So James mentioned, is the report pack a kite product or applied? I would love to say that we would be able to drop in report packs like that, but we
Mhm.
don't have that functionality. It is from applied. And if you have a newer database, so if you went live after like November 2021, you already have these reports. But if you went live prior to that on Epic, that's when you probably are missing some of those reports. So another thing to kind of keep in mind there. All right, very good. So we are going to go into now a little bit more detail about criteria versus layout because it's very important to understand those two pieces and how they work in any report, really in Epic. So criteria, first off, is really the filters that you use on the data. Jenny cracks me up with this analogy here. This was hers. I should have just given it to her. She says, think of your criteria like online shopping. I search for pants, then I narrow down to blue, or I narrow down to women's, and then I narrow down even more by size. I would have gone with Airbnb. I narrowed to a location and then a house, and but that's ideally what it is. So when you're thinking about criteria in Epic, we're going to go over to a report so we can actually show you this. And we open up that criteria. These available criteria are just kind of what comes with that report. Note that you can also add criteria too. So if I want to see a specific, client type, specific date range, specific carrier or broker, all of the detail that's listed here, that's what I'm filtering the data to. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to show up on the report if there's not a data field in the layout, which is where we'll go in just a second. So lots of times this information that is in the standard report layout, a lot of that information in the report criteria is going to be listed on the report, but some of it is not. And if you add criteria in this area, which you absolutely can, if you just wanted to, open up that criteria and go find your servicing role. Let's say maybe we want to look at just a certain CSR's book of business. We can also filter to that information, but that doesn't mean that that CSR, their name or code itself is going to show up on that layout. This is, again, just the filter itself. So Layout, though, is going to determine the report of the look itself and what that data is that's listed there. So you'll see here a good example of several layouts that are available with those new reports, which is one of the biggest things that we love about the newer reports is that there's a lot of different options for your layouts. Which Jenny's going to talk about summary layouts in just a minute. As we are looking at these, these are out of the box. You have things like detail by issuing company, premium payable entity, policy type, department, producer, branch, and so forth. You may want to have an additional layout that has it detailed by CSR. And in that case, you would have to, create or reuse, one of these layouts. A lot of times we recommend use what's already there, make a copy. You can copy that layout to this existing report, and then you can go into that detail of the layout and swap out your data fields. But that's just something to kind of keep in mind here. This is what's on the layout is the data fields themselves, and it is separate from that criteria. So hopefully everybody's good on that. All right.
So when you're looking with these brand new layouts, whatever version of the book of business report that you've gotten that you're using, they all have these summaries that you can turn on or off in the layout section. So we've got the summary. The ones that we love are summary by PPE, summary by policy type, department, producer, branch. We always add a summary by account manager or CSR. One of the layouts is summary by first producer only, and you may be interested in just the first producer, but a lot of agencies just have one producer on the policy, so the regular producer layout is fine. But it's super easy to switch. Um, do you have one pulled up, Lauren, or can you run that one run that book of business?
I can, yes. All right.
I don't know that we've set our criteria, and I think we're going to talk about the criteria to use in the next section. But if you pull this up,
I'm gonna uncheck this print at the bottom so we just get this one summary.
mhm,
And we'll leave that branch one in there too. So I'm going to preview that. Keep in mind in the browser, print preview and actions generate are both going to give you a PDF version unless you have changed your delivery options to
mhm,
reflect an Excel document. That's when you'll use actions generate. So print preview, actions generate, you're not wrong either way.
mhm,
That's taken me a really long time to get used to,
mhm.
honestly, because I've
I'm
even
just always afraid that we've set up like it's going to email to somebody, and so I always print preview. So this is one of my absolute favorite layouts when we're talking about when we're meeting with new clients and we're talking about cleanup because this will show you if you have missing or duplicate PPEs. If you have five different travelers, you're only going to get paid by one traveler. So only one traveler needs to be the billing company. It'll show you if you've entered somebody like Burns and Wilcox as a company rather than a broker. Again, another discussion for a whole other webinar. But this is where you can just really spot check your data. So this layout is really good for that. So you can see maybe if you're looking at the build premium and commission that we haven't been paid by auto owners for any of our active policies. So maybe we have not processed that commission statement, or maybe they didn't pay us, so we've got to start backtracking and figure out did we not get that auto draft from or that direct deposit. So that's really good. The layouts by producers and CSRs are really nice because they can show you like just the distribution of the book of business. I don't think we turned that one on. Here's the distribution by branch. So the CSRs or the producers or account managers would be the same thing. It would list their name, their total number, so you could see what their work volume was. So that comes in really handy that way.
Yeah, we have some very good questions from our audience from Robert and Bob. I wonder if Robert goes by Bob too. But anyways, So the question was, what's a PPE? That is a wonderful
Oh,
question.
that
That
is a
is
great question.
Yes, that is your premium payable entity. So on every single policy that you have in your system, you have what's also known as a billing company. So they changed the words a little bit from like if you were a TAM user and now you're an Epic user, it's a billing company
Mhm.
essentially, or it could be the broker. So if you have a broker on a specific policy, it's going to be the broker. So you have premium payable entity companies and you have premium payable entity brokers. So that's those. And the reason why we like to look at the PPEs list is because some of them are a little messed up. So we look at the summary first, and then we use the detail to figure out which ones are the policies that we need to fix. Yay. All right, cool. So we also like to talk about what criteria do we need to use because that's really important when you're running your book of business. And it can vary from one agency to another, but overall, the information is pretty similar, right, Jenny? Don't you think?
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
you might have different words than another agency has. So of course, the book of business is really a snapshot, right? So we're looking at what policies are in force today. So, Epic reports are not going to show really all policies, like Jenny mentioned earlier, that were in force at some point in 2025. You'll want to
Mhm.
use your dashboards. What to see those trends? But it does if
Data lake, you can swim in that. You can
I
swim.
know, right?
Fantastic.
So, but it is going to show the business and what it is worth as of today. So that's really your goal with that current book of business report. So I should probably add some words around that because when we're looking at current book of business, we're looking at that as a whole. But again, like we talked about earlier, you can use this report for several different things. So, book of business, current book of business, snapshot today. So, then one thing to keep in mind that I like to remind folks is that it also doesn't include policies that have downloaded that are effective in the future. So, download's going to drop policies in that are effective 30, 45, 60 days in the future. When you run your current book of business, even though you've already bound that coverage or whatever the case is, it's not going to pull into that current book because it's not active today. It's active tomorrow. So, things to keep in mind there. All right. So, what are some of those criteria that we want to make sure that we have in our book of business report? If we're looking at, again, those in-force policies, we are going to be looking at the relative date range and our effective date being open through today. That's going to eliminate anything effective next month, like I just said. And then anything, and we're going to expires tomorrow through open, and that excludes anything that expired in 1987. Oh my gosh. Jenny was
I
joking.
finished up Stranger Things, when we did the
I did too. Don't give them any spoilers. We can actually talk about that now since I finished it finally. I was a little slacker on that. Um, we also want to look though at our active policy statuses. So this is where this could vary a little bit from agency to agency because you have the ability to customize your policy statuses to whatever you want them to be. But ideally, the core typically is new business, renewals, policies that you've rewritten to another carrier, and then you may have others that you need to include in there, just depending on how you've classified new business and renewal business and things like that, but that's your core. Things that we can include in the report, but we typically only include or run to see that they need to be cleaned up are things like an endorsement status, like a policy change or endorsement. Reinstatement. Reinstatement doesn't tell me was this new or renewal or rewritten business. So when it comes to things like how am I supposed to pay the producer, or things like your retention reports in the future and so forth, that reinstatement status is very vague, as is the policy change. And then, of course, database synchronization. If you have pulled in a book of business and had to do a database synchronization, you may have some policies that still have that information on them. You want to try to get those cleaned up as quickly as possible, too. Okay. And
some.
let me
Oh,
show that in Epic, right? Hold on.
yeah.
Go
Some
ahead, Jamie.
agencies have like a one-time policy status or, whatever is your active status. if it's denoting as an active policy, those are the criteria that you want. So don't just write down new, redo, rewrite. If you have, I've seen some agencies have, this is a new business for a new client policy, and then this is a new business for an existing client policy. So if you have multiple statuses like that, include all of them that are active.
Mhm. Yes. And so as far as the dates are concerned, so this is one thing that is so wonderful about reports in Epic now. I know that I came from the dark age days of we did not have relative date range, and it was not fun. You had to change that fixed date range every time you wanted to run and get a current book of business. No more. You don't have to do that. I know it's not that new anymore, but it's still really cool. So, then what you're going to choose there for that specific criteria is that policy effective date being that relative date range. This is going to run based on a system date. So, as of today, open through, 0 days. So, open through today and then policy expiration date tomorrow through open. So as long as you have that relative date range set up, even if you drop this report on your report quick view, you could click at any time and it's going to run for your current book of business. So this is now something that you can set up as a scheduled report, run at any time, relative date range, saves lots and lots of time, and it creates automation for you. Ooh, I threw that word out there.
And literally, if you have to write this criteria on a sticky note, that's what I had to do. I wrote it on a
Yeah.
sticky note, put it on my monitor, because it just, I can remember being at a board and like writing out random dates and thinking, okay, does this fall within? And just write it on a monitor and memorize it, and then do it on your dry erase board later.
That's why I always say it to myself, open through today, tomorrow through open through today, tomorrow through open. Um,
Mhm.
all right. So, some more additional criteria that you may want to consider in your report would be things like by the agency. So, if you have multiple agencies in your system, you may need to filter those out a little bit. You may want to look at a specific branch if you have multiple office locations or multiple agencies that have been acquired, and those are, identified in branches. Definitely by department, especially if your agency has multiple servicing roles. Things like a benefits account manager and a commercial lines account manager, personal lines account manager, things like that. So those are three different data fields. So you want to make sure that you understand that that's going to be a little bit different than just doing it by department, which would be just pulling all of that information. You don't have to do as much criteria, basically. You also got by profit center. So if you have gotten fancy with your profit centers and you have, things like maybe small commercial, large commercial, we've got construction and trucking and hospitality, private client, standard client, all of those cool things. If you have set that up, you can also run a book of business by those profit centers. Or you can just use this as a one-off report. I don't know who Susie is, but she's really popular with Jenny. So, so what's Susie's book of business, right? So, do we want to see what her total volume is? Or, again, what is our traveler's book of business? That's information that is your data, right? You want to have that information on hand. You don't want to have to count on going to a carrier website to find that information. You can get it out of your Epic database as long as you've got good data, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Um, and to answer James's question, will the Bob pull see, he's already caught on. Will the Bob pull the current expiring policy and premium? And so, yes, it will. We are going to go into next some of the core detail on that report. So, Jenny, I'll let you take it from there.
So when you run the report, when you look at the detail, we've got, oh, okay. So the default fields are going to be, by the client code there. You can see the client name. You're going to see the policy and line type, the policy effective date, expiration date, and status. That's the first like left-hand side of the report. We're going to cover the right-hand side of the report in session two next month. But yes, you do have those fields in there. So Lauren's going to pull up a detail and we're going to print preview. And please don't judge us for our data. This is a demo database. So
Don't judge us for our data. Don't get judgy in this
don't
webinar.
get judgy. See, whenever I see a lot of white on this report, then I know that a lot of data is missing. And so I'm like, oh, but yes.
We're
So
not getting commission on anything.
so this one is the book of business and the major sort is the PPE. So that billing company. So you see with 21st Century Insurance in this first section, we have 16 policies and it lists them out all in alphabetical order by the client code. You can change the sort if you would rather see effective date or anything like that. You can change the sort and the layout. This is by PPE, so it's going to give us the client code, the client name, the policy and line type there. And if since this is a policy-based book, if you look, at Kroll Construction, you'll see commercial package slash business auto. It's a package. There are more than one line. It's just going to show the first line there. So it's just giving you just an idea of the policy. You see the policy number, you're seeing the effective date, the expiration date, and you're seeing that status. So this is another way that you can eyeball some of your data and see, okay, these are all in renewed status, so that's good. And if you keep scrolling down, here's ACE and same thing, and you can just kind of do a spot check there. Your dates are going to be fit. They're going to fit within your criteria. So that's that part of that. One of the things that I do look for is policy number. I like to eyeball that and see, do you have a lot of TBDs? Do you have a lot of blanks? Do you have a lot of quotes? Things like that. When you're looking for policy number in that criteria field, you're looking for the policy number field in the criteria. That is not it is literally a range. So it's hard to catch the TBDs and things like that. So sometimes if you're trying to do some cleaning, then you want to dump this into Excel, which you can do. You dump it into Excel and then look for those. I don't see any here, but you're just getting like a nice summary. You grouping major sort. So this is by PPE. You can do this by producer. You can do this by all of the summaries that we showed you. This will do the same way. It'll list out every account manager, and you can see if somebody's struggling with their data. Just gives you a nice big picture of everything. Each section has a total at the end. Um, Julie is asking about the money field. Does this report pull from? And even though we're going to talk about it next time, this pulls from the policy level. So build premium at the policy level, build commission at the policy level, estimated premium at the policy level, estimated commission at the policy level.
Mhm.
And Lisa is asking if we run the policy effective date minus 365 days through open, and we don't, because sometimes you have a policy that's maybe a 3-year policy and it was in force 2 years ago, so it wouldn't catch that even though it's an active policy. So that's why we always recommend effective open through today and expire tomorrow through open. That'll catch everything that's in force today. I know a lot of the reports come out of applied with the negative 365 days like already set up, but we always change it to catch. This is a more accurate catching of that.
Mhm. All right. I believe we are talking about premium and build premium, estimated premium later. Is that right?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
but if you see nothing listed, that means that field is blank in Epic. So
Exactly.
whatever the data field is, that means that it's blank.
Yes. Good. All right. So that was Robert's question. Thank
Mhm.
you. Which means we're going to go into, hold on, drum roll, how to spot missing data, blank assignments and workflow gaps. I just love how everybody's questions are so good that they're like, hey, we know what's coming next on this presentation. Surprise. So as far as missing data is concerned, you can use the Book of Business report itself, or you can use some variations of the report, like we talked about a little bit earlier on. Here, What we like to start with is the summary by PPE. One thing that we have seen countless times across countless agencies. So don't feel special if you have issues with your PPEs. You're not the only one. But what we see is a couple of different things. We might see issuing companies listed on policies as a premium payable entity. Matter of fact, you know what? I'm going to bring that report back up because I want to show this while I'm doing it. So here, for example, like this report by PPE, if I saw in here two different Chubbs, like Chubb Group, which is clearly the billing company, right? But I also saw like Chubb Property and Casualty. Chances are, if that Chubb Property and Casualty only has like five policies in it, and Chubb Group has 485, Chubb's probably my billing company. So, obviously you want to check with accounting and verify that information on the policy and so forth. But that's a lot of times what we'll see as far as issuing companies are concerned. Unfortunately, at some time, whether it was migration, or whether it was when someone put that company in, it was marked as billing. And so that allows you to put it as the premium payable entity on the policy. So this can help you clean up that data. You may also have some duplicate companies. We've seen things like maybe there's Travelers Insurance, and then there's Travelers Personal Insurance, and then Travelers Commercial Insurance. Those are all Travelers. Travelers is really the only billing company there. So you want to make sure that you identify what those are that are extraneous, get those updated, and so forth. And then the last one, of course, could be brokers entered as companies or even duplicate brokers as companies. I've seen where the broker's actually there, but there's also a broker as a company. So those are some of the things that you can identify in that detail by PPE. Another one that you can use is going to be the summary by policy type. That one, of course, you can see if you have any inactive or invalid policy types that are being used on policies. This is most common after like a migration or potentially an acquisition. You may have some old policy types that are in there, and when that policy gets renewed, you're going to move that over to your new policy type. You can also do a summary by the producer or by your account manager in CSR. You can see how many policies you have with those specific servicing roles, those different users and things like that. You can also see where maybe you have some folks that aren't with the agency anymore and you might need to get them out of your system. So you need to do a little bit of reassignment, a little bit of cleanup, and make sure that those are sitting with active users. There are also a couple more that we might recommend. The detail by account manager or CSR would list policies, of course, without a CSR first. So obviously we want someone to be responsible for policies. So we might need to see which ones that we have that are blank and have no person assigned to them. And like I said earlier, list of things that were potentially assigned to former employees. And then, of course, you can also look at your detail by producer, very similar to that detail by account manager. You're looking for things that are missing a producer or broker or policies that have, former employees or brokers listed there.
Lauren, we had a question that I wanted to answer live because
Okay.
somebody was asking, how do you switch? The question especially was their report is pulling annualized commission. How do you switch it to estimated? But it's the same concept. I wondered if we could show how to switch to a CSR view since we're doing the left-hand side of the report. So
Well, as far as the annualized to estimated, that would just be the report itself, right?
yeah,
So
you could pull the build estimated instead of the build annualized. Yeah.
yes, yes. So if you're only pulling annualized, you again may not have the latest reports. You should see these three different reports in your main policy reports.
Mhm.
You just want to make sure that you're running the build estimated, build est, instead of anything that says build annualized. But the standard out of the box book of business report only pulls annualized. But yes, Jenny, I will certainly be Vanna for you today.
Thank you.
Um, and I will open up the layout, which is issuing company, because I always like to use that one.
Okay.
I'm going to copy, yeah. So I'm like, I don't care about the issuing company. I'm sure somebody does. I should
Yeah.
probably stop saying that.
There was a comment before too saying that, I don't know that Applied's ever going to give us the ability to reorder these, but if you make a copy like Lauren's doing, it'll put it at the end. And so you can essentially reorder your layouts by copying them in the order that you want them to appear. Not as good as having arrows and rearranging them, but still. Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
actions copy.
Yep, it's under actions, or you can just right click. And when you do the actions or right click copy layout too, you're just going to select this report. You're going to modify your layout name just a little bit
Mhm.
because that's what's going to show up down here. And then you can finish that out. We don't recommend overwriting any layout that's there unless you're never ever going to use it again. Obviously, you can always get it out of the main report section, but copy this over to your My Reports and then make a copy of that layout. So the original is still there, but now you're just adding to. So we're creating that CSR version. I'm going to double click on detail by CSR in case you're wondering how the layout builder showed up. I'm a double clicker. I don't like the pencil, but you can pencil all day long. Nothing wrong with that. It's just a different way to get there. So one thing to keep in mind is that issuing company is in several different places, right? So from the top here, we've got the description. So we don't want to say this is it by ICO. We come down here to the bottom, click on that little text area, and there's a little down arrow. I can change that up to say CSR. And if anyone thinks I'm moving a little quickly, I probably am because we only have 20 minutes left in this webinar. If you would like to see some of our prior webinars on reports and layouts and this in more detail, check out our YouTube channel. In the meantime, I'm going to move on. So here down at the bottom, you want to change that major sort, and then you're going to have to change the data fields here too. You don't have to take these out and put them back in. You can just change them. So I click on that major sort, and where it says group data field, we'll click on that. There's three little dots that show up right there. And once we pull into that, we need to go back and find the servicing role. Most often it is the second servicing roles. I can't explain why there's two listed there. But there's nothing wrong. It's just how it is. So double click
You'll
on.
know you have the wrong one because it's blank. There's
Yes.
nothing in the other one. Yeah, so you'll know you have the
Yeah.
wrong one. Yeah.
You can choose to sort by either the code, which would be basically by their last name, or you can choose by their name. Totally up to you. I'm going to go with code for today. And I'm going to finish there. So now I've changed my major sort. Notice though that this still says ICO. Changing the sort itself doesn't change these data fields. Another thing to keep in mind is that little no value text also needs to be changed to no CSR code because we changed the data field. We need to change the description too, in case you've got policies that have no CSR. So then you can pop over here to the ICO code. If we highlight that, we can change that down in this bottom little left corner here too. I'm going to just click on that data field, click on my three little dots. Every time I say three little dots, I'm thinking of that song, Three Little Birds now. Um, so we're going to double click, go and find the CSR just like we did a minute ago. Pull in that code, finish. Boom, we've swapped that out for the CSR code.
You can also copy that data field name and then paste it for the next one. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I'll do a lot of times is copy that and paste it. And then when I get to the name, I'll just change the last word to name.
All right, we're
So
going
you
the
don't have to
easy
go.
route, Janine. I don't know how
Okay.
to do that. Clicking. I am not. Okay, so if you're an advanced reports person like Jenny is, I'm gonna let her show you how to do that one later. Servicing role, client server. I love you. We're gonna click on name here because we got the code where we need the code. So we're just gonna do name. I get what you're saying now. But I could have just clicked in here and scrolled to the end and changed that to name instead of code and just changed that data field up. So you can manually copy and paste that in there and modify the data as needed, or you can just choose from the little file cabinet there that's listed. So once you've got all that done, you have effectively changed to sort by CSR. Really just a few clicks. Just remember to use that little data field box down in the bottom left-hand corner. We will click File and Save and File and Exit. And Now we have a detail by CSR. Don't forget you have to go change your summary too if you want to get a summary. Same concept though. You got to change your major sort, change your data fields, and you're all set there. So, all right. And we shall move on. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the detail fields, right? So as we're looking through these reports, you want to, like Jenny said, mention, or she said earlier, spot check things for that say things like test or TBD or quote, etc. One of the better ways to handle those policies is to identify those with a policy status. So if you have a policy that is not enforced, it better not be in an active policy status on your current renewed screen. So if you put in a new business quote and that's on your current renewed screen, it's got to be in a new business quote status. If you've got a marketed renewal and it's on your current renewed screen, it's not bound coverage, so it needs to be in a marketed or quoting status. What that's going to do is that's going to eliminate those policies from even showing up on your book of business. And then you could go run a report to see did somebody finish out that process as well. Also, spot check or just run your report, drilled down to any policy status that's not an active policy status. So you can run the report just for those endorsements and things like that. And then producers, if you even want to drop this in Excel and do some sort and filtering, that's going to be another quick way for you to identify anything that's missing, or like we said, folks that shouldn't be there anymore. All right. So I am going to move forward just a little bit. We just said that. Make sure you look for testing and TBDs and quotes. I've seen a lot of those on some reports before. So, but keep in mind that can't be easily pulled from a cleaning report because it is not a data field. So, all
Mhm.
right, Jenny, do we have any additional questions? It looks like you have got all of those Q&As out of there. So
Mhm.
we're going to move on to the next section and probably answer Daniel's question because he is mentioning that he is having issues with book business, adding canceled codes, and not having negative values features. So we may need some additional clarification around that question, but we are going to be talking policy statuses next. So I'll let you take it from here, Jenny.
Sure. And I think what you're asking, Daniel, is we don't actually pull canceled statuses into the book of business when we're looking at it. So that doesn't become an issue where I think what you're saying is the canceled status doesn't show the premium and commission as negative, like you've lost that. So we pull the canceled status onto a lost business report or retention report, which is my
Mhm.
favorite. But again, another webinar. All right. So the effect of the policy types. So you have different policy types. So if you're doing, especially like life book of business, you write a policy in 1963 and you got paid in 1964. And now you're getting like a penny a year. Well, I guess they've outdone pennies, so maybe you're getting 5 cents a year or nothing. But you're not going to keep you're not going to spend the time that it takes to manage the data on that policy in that sense. So for life policies, that's where you record that you have it, but when you're looking at a book of business, it's not you're not gonna spend all the money that it takes to upkeep that data for 3 cents a year or 5 cents a year. So usually we exclude these from the book of business. If you have other policies like that, or maybe you're not doing the accounting in Epic, you can exclude those as well. And then also individual health. That's kind of hard sometimes because either there's subsidies and it's difficult to their monthly that kind of thing. A lot of times that's a manual calculation. So again, depending on what your book is and what you're trying to do. You may not want to include those. Don't just exclude them because we've just said that you can on the webinar. You have to know your business,
Yeah.
and it's possible to exclude
Yeah.
those.
Maybe you should just run a separate report with the life and health
Yeah,
policies because they
yeah,
give you a
yeah.
little bit of anxiety looking at them with your PNC stuff.
Yeah, a lot of times we just run it for PNC. Again, with your tail coverage or your continuous policies, um, group health, that's really hard to capture just because there's so much of a flux. And unless you're monitoring that data and keeping it throughout the year, then that's hard to keep too. You've got your 3-year policies, and that might reflect your full premium instead of each year. So again, you might want to exclude those. Our criteria certainly keeps those in, and just depending on what you've got. I know some agencies, when they have bid bonds, they'll put one bid bond line in for the whole year, and then just use that as like their quoting line. So you can exclude those policy types as well if you have, you know your business. So just know you can exclude them in the criteria.
Mhm.
Now the statuses, again, this is like when it comes to epic reporting, statuses is probably one of the single most important piece of data that you can have. And I am diligent about checking policy statuses. We'll talk about that next time as well. But you should have your statuses fall into 3 categories. You should be able to identify your active business. So that's new, renewal, rewrite. You might have that one-time policy status for special events that aren't going to renew, so you can exclude them from a missed renewal report, things like that. You want to be able to show lost business. So, if it's canceled insured's request, canceled for non-pay, canceled for business closed / client deceased, if you like to see, if you've lost it due to no fault of your own. You've got exclusions, so like entered in error, you can exclude that from your reports. The new business quote, the renewal marketed, any kind of quoting status, you can exclude from those as well. So anything that doesn't fall into those 3 categories, for instance, reinstatement, somebody had asked about, I think, the policy change. Those are more download applied statuses. And if you see those in your book of business, you want to change them back to what the status of the policy actually is. And one of the biggest reasons is for your new business report. You want to be able to answer the question, how much new business did I have in 2025? And if your new business policies are in a reinstatement status or a policy change status, they're not going to pull on the report. So you don't want to use a quoting status. You need to use a quoting status for policies that are not in force or bound on the current renewed screen. So you want to identify, separate your quotes out from your new business. And then we talked about the reinstatement, policy change, and audit. And then if you want to make sure that your statuses are clear. So if you have a rewrite status but renewed with a different carrier as well, you really need to define when you're going to use those, and not only define it in your own mind, but communicate that to the staff. We recommend cheat sheets. Here's the policy statuses. Here's when you use it and why you use it and what situation you use it in. So cancel general. That's another one that doesn't give us any information. So we always say, is this business truly lost, or is it rewritten to another carrier? And so you want to always change that one as well.
Through it. I will pause for just a second though and hit on some of these questions. So we have a question from Yvonne. We tried the new business quote status, but what we realized is that when a staff member would issue the policy, they would forget to change the status to new business, and it would be left as new business quote. Any ideas on how to make it where the system prompts the user to update the status? No, but that sounds like a really cool, bright idea that you should share with Applied. Make sure you go on and add that pack. But some of the bumper things that maybe you might want to do would be, on your new business activity, on your ad policy activity, you could add a task. I know tasks are not like the most popular thing on the planet, but when you have an issue with folks that are, consistently having a problem doing a certain task, it may be a good idea to add that on that activity so that when they go to close the activity, they're reminded, hey, you have a task to complete. So you need to make sure that you complete this task before you close this activity, and that task could be, don't forget to put the policy in the right status. Um, So that could be one way to do that. You can also run a report, of course, of policies that would have the new business quote status. If they issue it, it's also going to be in a contracted criteria. It's going to be that contracted status as well. So if you, for example, look at this criteria here, you could combine that new business quote status. So we look for just new business quotes that are in a contracted, not prospective state. So if you do that, those are going to be ones that somebody has issued, or you could even use service summary row, stage of issued, either one of those to see here are the new business quotes that somebody has issued. So task to knock it out up front, report with criteria to identify that after the fact. All right. Cool, cool. Jenny, are we going over scheduling reports in in the part two?
I think so.
Okay. Amin has a very good question there. You're very welcome for the great webinar, by the way. They said, can I set up a schedule for the book of business report or any report that is different for each layout? Yes, absolutely. You'll just want to make a copy of that report, and then you can set up, schedule a different layout for each one of those. The wonderful ladies that are hanging out in the background, our little fairies, have dropped also our YouTube channel in. So if you'd like to go check out those report sessions that we've done previously, I believe there's a part one and part two. That will be very helpful in learning how to schedule some of those reports as well. But yes, things in the next session. And then Samantha, Jenny, how do you exclude multi-year policies?
Oh gosh. I think if it were a policy type, I would exclude that policy type. Um,
Could be a status.
yeah.
There's really not a way for you to do that because it's going to be an active policy. So, as far as exclusions concerned, you'd have to have some other identifying criteria outside of the effective expiration date, things like that. So, you may want to consider your policy statuses. Maybe you have a new multi-year policy status or a renewal multi-year policy status. That's a good question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that one. They typically want to see, this is active business. All right. Let's see. So Terry, I'm not sure I completely understand that question. Jenny, maybe you can decipher this one for
Yeah.
me.
That was a question that we had earlier about companies, so I'll answer that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you're going to type that one?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right. And then we have Mike has a good question. He says, could we add business sold to lost business status? Absolutely. You can create as many lost business statuses as you'd like. Don't get too crazy because we don't want people to get into like anxiety mode over making decisions. But yes, business sold. That's one that Jenny has mentioned that they used in their previous agency, and we've seen a lot of agencies use over the years because that's not your fault, right? If the agency or the client sells their business, or maybe, someone passes away, that's not something that you really could have done anything about. So that is a good, lost business status.
Used that one a lot during COVID because a lot of businesses closed.
All right. Um, Terry, oh, I love this question. And she used my favorite phrase. I don't know. Terry could be both. Forgive me if I messed that up. A book of business is garbage in, garbage out, as are all reports, as is the entire agency management system of Epic. Garbage in is garbage out. They say, I prefer a production report. Why should I use Bob? So the reason for using a Bob versus a production report is production is based solely on transactions. Now, if you're on an accrual basis, as far as accounting methods are concerned, I know I'm getting into a totally different area there, then you're entering transactions every single time business is bound at the policy level, at the client level. So if that's the case, production report may be pretty accurate because you're putting in the full premium the full time. However, most agencies, I'd be willing to bet that are on this call, are probably on a cash basis for direct bill commission. And so those transactions don't get entered until you're actually receiving the money for those. So, it could be an installment schedule. You're not receiving the full premium until, the end of the term. Your billed premium doesn't show that, or your production doesn't show that. So the reason for using the book of business is because you're looking at what's the total value of that policy? What's the estimated value of that policy? Same thing with, lost business, new business, things like that. A new business transaction is not always going to go in as soon as that coverage is bound. So your book of business is going to reflect that information versus always being on your production report. And they're two totally different types of policies. Production report is transaction based. Sorry, two different types of reports. I just caught that after the fact. Your production reports based on transactions, book of business is based on policy data. So totally different information that you're going to be able to pull into those as well. Okay, I am going to go to a couple more of our slides that we have left so that I can finish us out. But please, again, feel free to hang out with us if you can. If you need to get to your lunch or your next meeting, don't worry, we're going to send this recording to you. And you'll also be able to see it on YouTube that you've subscribed to because you didn't forget to do that today. So, we like to go through some practical examples of things that could be causing issues in your book of business. One situation that feel like have beaten a dead horse out of today is the quotes on a book of business, because again, that's not bound coverage. We don't want to see quotes on our book of business. We want to see active business on our book. So if we mentioned earlier, the policy is there on your current renewed screen, it needs to be in that, quoting status. The not issue workflow also needs to be followed, especially if that's an active client with other policies. We don't want to see, a quote still hanging out on a current renewed screen for 12 months. That shouldn't be there. So when it comes to, finishing out that workflow, I'm going to navigate over to one of my clients here. We may or may not have a quote listed on one of these, but if you do have a quote policy on your current renewed screen, you're going to want to go over to policies and let's see if any of these are not issued. Look at that. Somebody messed this up. This was a quote. It says new business written. It's not issued. It's in process. Psh, definitely don't know who that is. I know who this Lauren person is. Anyways, but let's say that coverage didn't get bound, right? So we need to finish out this process, clean it off the current renewed screen. What we're going to do here is we are going to click on that issue, not issue policy. And from there, we're going to click on not issue. Now you'll notice that once you click on not issue, some of these requirements change, right? So policy number, that probably if Lauren, whoever she is, had entered this the right way, followed the right workflow, might have said TBD, or it could have been blank. It was just quote. Now, again, we also don't want this to show up on our current renewed screen anymore. So we're going to come right here and make sure that this date is the same as this date. So I'm just going to back that up to 2025. So 30 days after that date, it's going to fall off. Your agency might have a different configuration there. Ours is set to 30 days. Down at the bottom of the screen, we have status. Now, keep in mind that status is in every issue, not issue policy screen. So this is where I'm going to change this to wah, wah, wah. They didn't take the quote. So quote not taken is what we have listed there. I finished that all out. Oh, don't forget to close your open activities if you had any. Uh, invalid date was entered, probably because of that. Boop, boop, boop. I was playing around with benefits policies. It's convoluted benefits things. So we click on finish here, and that is all set. Now, of course, it hasn't been 30 days since this policy expired according to the dates. So it's still going to hang out there for a second. But now, even, once I look at this screen, I can see, boom, quote not taken. That's not an effective policy. So I don't have anything that is muddying the water on my data. So, um, another area that you might find these types of policies is going to be on, policies that are in process. So if you're running a service summary row report, which you should be, that is looking for policies in process, you will find those there as well. You will also see those policies show up on your policies with no transactions report because if it was never bound, we're not getting money for it, and we certainly didn't bill for it. If you did, that could be a bigger issue. So, so in that situation, that's also, a lot of what we see on those reports as well. All right, Jenny is killing the Q&A over here. I don't even have to, I don't know if we're going to have any more questions to answer. Um,
Well, a lot of them aren't necessarily related to the book of business report, so I've just been answering them.
she's amazing. She's just wonderful.
Spewing, just spewing knowledge out here.
Just giving it all. So we did mention earlier that there could be some issues with your PPEs. If you identify those issues, like we said earlier, run that summary by PPE report, and you'll find where those issues are. But be very cautious of the cleanup process. You want to make sure that you change the PPE at the policy level first. So let's say, for example, we pop back over here into Epic, and let's say that this policy has progressive casualty, but it's just supposed to be progressive. We want to update that PPE here first. Once all of those are updated, you want to clear it with accounting, make sure that there are no open accounting transactions under that incorrect PPE. Then you can make sure that your company, over in companies, locate that thing there, company. All right, and we're going to go progressive. We're not going to change anything here, but you go into that company, and if it's not supposed to be a billing company, that's when you want to change this to just issuing and not billing. And then, of course, you can assign the billing company in this area too. Just keeping that in mind. We've got some things that are connected there. If you go ahead and change that to issuing only, and there's still some stuff hanging out in accounting, they're going to be like, well, where'd my company go? And it's not going to be a cool thing.
Mhm. That's a really good point because somebody had asked that question and I was like, oh yeah, just uncheck the box.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
yeah, I'm
yeah.
not an
Well,
accounting person, so I'm just an unchecker. I'm a clicker. So yeah,
I get it. I get it. Well,
yeah.
and you may also need to inactivate a company. So the reason why we try not to do that until accounting is clear. I mean, obviously you can come back in here and check the box again, and then finish up what needs to be done in accounting. It's not the end of the world, but if you're doing a big cleanup project or something like that, it is kind of a pain. So, and then you may also just need to inactivate the company if it's a duplicate. Same thing. Do that after everything is cleared out.
And there is a question about if we were to uncheck this as a billing company, then if it's a downloading carrier, then you do need to enter the billing company or else your download will fail. So you need to put in the right billing company there when you uncheck the
Yeah.
box.
Yeah, so you would pick that billing company. Well, made it, and we're only 7 minutes over so far. We have some next steps for you because we're not going to let you leave this webinar today without some homework. Some of the things that you could do now that you have all of the knowledge about your book of business today. I'm just kidding. You've got one more session that you've got to attend. Make sure that you do have the latest reports. Contact applied if you are missing the reports that have the asterisk in the description. Definitely run some cleanup reports to identify your data issues. We've mentioned today several ways that you can run that book of business to see where you have some problems. And then, of course, we'll dig into those a little bit more in the next session. Um, Another thing that you need to do is certainly train your staff on those key data points that, where there is data that needs to be cleaned up. You can also use required and desired fields. Please make sure that you train before you require and desire fields. I used to joke that you could just say, oh, there was an epic update, now it's required. That kind of annoys people. So we're going to be nice and say, hey, you need to fill out this data field. And by the way, it's going to be required going forward. So put a couple little bumpers around them. And then lastly, big key point is make sure that you clean up your companies and configuration if you identify that that is an issue in your database. So with that, Keep in mind that if you signed up for this webinar and you have attended today, you are already registered for part two. No homework needed there. However, if you have somebody that wants to join this session, this next session that's coming up, feel free to use that QR code and it will send them over to that registration link. You can also visit our website to do that as well. In addition to that, we also like to remind you that there are several different ways that we can help if you need somebody to help you with the cleanup process and setting up reports and all the other things here that we have listed. Lots of cool stuff. We love doing applied epic assessments and agency virtual administration, which is our newest service that's hanging out there. Jenny is our lead on that. Applied Epic optimizations. We also support with migration. So for you folks that are on Epic and you have friends that need help, be sure to let them know that we support that as well. Also, we do workflow development, custom reports, accounting, and outsourced bookkeeping. Again, we really appreciate that you guys joined us today. Thanks for everybody that's still hanging out. You guys are the real winners, gold stars for all of you. We hope that this information has been valuable to you and that you have a better understanding of what the Book of Business Report has to offer you and how to start using it in your agency. If you'd like to learn more about Kite Tech's IT and agency consulting services, please feel free to reach out any of the ways that are listed here. We'd be happy to meet with you and explore how we can help. Thank you again for being with us today. Don't forget to fill out your survey, and we will see you next time.